Hey friends, here we go again. I apologize in advance. I'm going to talk about Kent Hovind once more. He just came out with a new video titled 6 Evidences of Young Earth Creationism with Kent Hovind. And it's got a slightly different flavor from his usual drivel. Well, superficially at any rate. It's short. It's only about 3 minutes long. It also looks like he got some professional lighting advice. So look how pretty he is. Yeah, with a clean, simple background and some reasonable illumination. I'm afraid I can't emulate him in that regard. I'm not at all pretty. Sorry. And I record these things in my rather cluttered home office. At least I've got a functioning brain, though, so that kind of helps here. I hope that helps me catch up with Hovind quality. Because unfortunately, the content is the same old garbage. Kent Hovind hasn't learned a thing in 50 years, which is remarkable. That's actually kind of a theme of this little video is, yeah, how little Kent Hovind knows and has learned and changed over time. So let's listen to what he has to say.
Hi folks, my name's Kent Hovind. I was a high school science teacher 15 years. And
this is the same way he starts virtually every video ever. Hi folks, my name is Kent Hovind. I was a high school science teacher for 15 years. That's also the way he starts his doctoral thesis. Yeah. Hello, my name is Kent Hovind. I am a creation science evangelist. I have been a high school science teacher since 1976. No, he wasn't. This is all a lie. So let's just go over Kent Hovind's actual CV for a little bit. He graduated from Midwestern Baptist College in 1972. This is an unaccredited Bible college. He has no credible training and no credible teaching certification and would not be hired by any credible school. Yeah, the public schools, for instance, would not accept this background as qualifications to teach. His first real job was as an assistant pastor at Bethel Baptist Church. He became the pastor in 1976. So he's basically just a Baptist preacher here. And he created Bethel Baptist Academy as part of his church. And he appointed himself to the position of science teacher. Yeah, he didn't earn that job. He just, poof, he made it happen and put himself in that position. So this hardly counts. Okay. So he moved on to Faith Baptist Academy in 1978, where he claims to have been a teacher. But again, basically he was teaching Sunday school. Sunday school teachers, sure, they're teaching, but they're not teaching anything that counts as science. His next position was in 1981 at Longview Christian Academy and Texas Baptist College in Longview, Texas. I don't know what was involved there. I kind of doubt that it was good science teaching. Then in 1986, he was off to Calvary Baptist. You notice a theme here? These are all Baptist schools, but anyway, okay. Off to Calvary Baptist Christian School in Fairfield, California, where he was an assistant pastor and claims to have taught science to grade school kids. Yeah, okay. In 1989, he took his final formal position at anything at East Hill Christian School in Pensacola, Florida, but he has said that he became a full-time evangelist for the Lord also in 1989. 1989 was a busy year for him, I guess. Lots of changes in his head at that time, although not really any significant changes. And then he went off to a Colorado diploma mill, Patriot University, in 1991 to scribble up that childish thesis, being rewarded with a certificate from an unaccredited Bible school. It's a very peculiar history, okay? There's lots of flitting about from place to place. I would love to hear about what those communities thought about Hovind's brief tenure at each place and what kind of events led to his departure from each one. It may just be that this is the itinerant lifestyle of that kind of poorly qualified teacher, just drifting from place to place, taking short temporary positions just to pay the bills and then moving on. I still kind of suspect that there may have been some clashes of ego in these various places, so I'd love to hear about that, but everyone's closed-mouthed about it. Okay, by the way, he consistently claims he was teaching high school science for 15 years, but he started in 1976, okay, and hit the road to preach young earth creationism in 1989. 1989 minus 1976 is not 15 years. He's not very good at arithmetic. That will show. Although, to be charitable, I assume he's dating it from 1976 to 1991 when he was off scribbling his terrible thesis, despite the fact that his history is fractured and he wasn't actually teaching in high school at all that time. So he's just weaving the story. It's not a very good story. It's not a good start at all, but at least, hey, let's hear what his 6 evidences are. What do you think they'll be? Something exciting?
I love studying about the Bible and what the Bible teaches in regard to science. God said very clearly that he made everything in 6 days. Now, how could you show the age of the earth? Well, I think the very best evidence of what some people call a young earth is God said he did it in 6 days and nothing died until Adam sinned. And Jesus said that was the beginning of the creation. So the best evidence of a young earth is the Bible. The Bible, certainly the dates in Genesis 5 and Genesis 11 clearly add up to about 6,000 years for the total age of the earth, 4,000 BC. That's never been refuted. Some people don't want to believe that, but the best evidence, I think, of what they call, I don't think 6,000 is young, I think that's pretty old, but the best evidence of a 6,000-year-old earth is the Bible itself.
Okay, his evidences. Number 1 is that God said he did it in 6 days. Sorry, guy, that won't fly. You can't just wave a Bible at a non-believer and expect them to accept your interpretation of what it says. So I don't accept the authority of the Bible. Telling me that the Bible says something means absolutely nothing to me. He also claims that summing up the ages of the biblical patriarchs, all the begats in the book of Genesis, add up to 6,000 years. A claim that has never been refuted. No, that doesn't work either. They can't add up to 6,000 for one thing, since the claim is that Moses wrote the book of Genesis. He didn't, but that's the claim. And he wrote it while the Israelites were wandering around in the desert, which would have been about 1450 BC if it had happened, which it didn't. So nothing is adding up here. You can't just make this stuff up. But also, to make it fit, they have to pretend that those patriarchs lived to be 900 years old, or 1,000 years old, or 1,200, whatever the numbers are. They're absurd, they're not true. It's all grandiose mythic poetry. Just accept it for what it is. It's not intended to be taken literally, and it's always a mistake when you try to take it literally. So, are his next 5 evidences going to be any better? Guess. What do you think? You think he'll surprise us?
But then you can look at almost any branch of science. You can look at the science of living things, biology, and you'll see that the population of the earth today is growing, but if you do the math and go backwards in time, you can make everybody on the planet from 8 people getting off of Noah's Ark 4,500 years ago. If man's been here for millions of years, why aren't there a whole lot more people? Population is a great indicator that man has not been here for millions of...
No, he doesn't surprise us. His number 2 piece of evidence is a claim that was originally made by Henry Morris, not by Kent Hovind, that just doesn't work. He argued that if you have a consistent population growth of about 0.5%, you can get the current population of the planet, almost 8 billion people, starting with just 8 after the global flood, which would have been in about 2304 BC, plus or minus some small amount, or about 4,300 years ago. If it had happened at all, that is. Anyway, so you can do this yourself. Do the calculation. Just assume a population growth rate of about 5% per year. I actually found that if I did it, it didn't work at 5%. It had to be something like 4.85%, and then you get the endpoints work out. And that's sort of an indication that this is a bogus calculation anyway, because you can just fiddle with the exponent until you get the right answer. So anyway, here's the formula right there. It's really simple. Use your spreadsheet. You can do it. Even Excel can handle this. It's just the population of the world is equal to 8 times, 8 is the population on the arc, by the way, 8 times 1.005 or 1.0048 or whatever to the nth power, where n is the number of years. So yeah, just assume, okay, the flood was 4,300 years ago. Plug in 4,300 as n and do the calculation. And yeah, you can fiddle with it and you get about 7.7 billion years. Great. Okay, that's what we got now. And 8 is the number that the book of Genesis claims was on the ark. Hey, the endpoints fit. Except it doesn't hold at all. Only at the arbitrary endpoints. Only at the points where you've adjusted this crude, simple formula to make it work does it hold up at all. It also predicts, for instance, that the population of the entire world at the time of Aristotle and Alexander the Great was about 100,000 people. Yeah, that Alexander the Great was fudging everything too, I guess. It'd be easy to conquer the world if you've got an army of 30, 50,000 people and the whole population of the planet is 100,000. You outnumber everyone. Yeah, that's not true. Okay, and then you can also see that, well, at the peak of the Roman Empire, let's say around the time there Jesus was born, there were only about 500,000 people on the entire planet. So that's including North and South America, Asia, Australia, all that. We had 500,000 people spread among all those continents. And yeah, that doesn't work either. That's not very plausible. And that's without even mentioning that by the dating of the flood, the Great Pyramid at Giza was built before the flood. Also, that at the time of the flood, all these Chinese people were busy living in the Bronze Age and inventing rice farming, and they didn't even notice the flood. Didn't seem to affect them at all. So, yeah, this doesn't work. But also, I got to mention, this was also the conclusion of his PhD thesis. Yeah, Kent Hovind ended his thesis on this slam-bang piece of garbage evidence where he wrote, the population of the Earth today doubles regularly. If you were to draw up the population growth on a chart, Kent Hovind never bothered to draw it up on a chart, or he'd see these obvious flaws with the whole idea. You would see that it goes back to zero about 5,000 years ago. If man has been here millions of years, like the evolutionists teach, where is the population? The whole population growth can be studied by anyone, except Kent Hovind, who never bothered to look, and it will be found that the Earth dates a young age for the Earth of 4,000 to 5,000 years. No, everything's wrong with this. Yeah, the formula doesn't work. Humans haven't been around for millions of years, 100,000 to 200,000 years maybe, and population growth cannot be summed up by a single fixed rate. It changes depending on circumstance. So, Hovind hasn't learned a thing. He's a parrot, which I know, that's an insult to parrots. But let's take a look at his next point anyway.
When you look at the genetic load that's increasing in the gene pool of people, you say, wow, this can't have been going on for a long time, not millions of years.
Oh, okay. Number 3 is genetic load. He doesn't really say anything of substance here. He just repeats the words genetic load. I don't think he understands the concept. But again, he stole this straight from Henry Morris. This is straight out of Henry Morris's big book of scientific creationism. This idea that the only possible effect of mutations is to lower the viability of the population, which isn't necessarily true. And since we keep adding new mutations all the time, the problem becomes worse and worse over time. He doesn't take into account the fact that selection also removes mutations, because he doesn't believe in selection, I guess. So here we have it, another argument straight from Henry Morris that Hovind steals and rebrands. He doesn't have any references in his thesis, by the way. Another peculiarity of this so-called thesis. So he doesn't give credit to any of the people he rips off.
You can look at the sun. The sun is burning up its fuel source. Obviously it's burning, and it's shrinking because of its burning up its fuel, and it is not only shrinking, it is throwing off 5 million tons a second. It's losing weight. Well, if your sun's been losing weight for billions of years, if you get back in time in your imagination, the sun would be much heavier, making gravity stronger, sucking all the planets in. You cannot have the fine balance between Earth and sun with there just being in the right habitable zone for millions and billions of years while the sun's losing weight so fast.
Evidence number 4 is the incredible shrinking sun. Okay, now this is way outside my domain of expertise. So I'm not going to pretend that I know the answer to this one. I'll just defer to the astronomers who say that no, the sun does not seem to be shrinking at all. It oscillates in diameter very slightly, but the overall mass is roughly constant. The clever rebuttal I've seen to this claim is the idea that if you measure the ocean, you go down to the beach and you measure the low tide mark, and then you come back 6 hours later to measure the high tide mark, and then calculate that the ocean is constantly expanding at that rate, you'd come up with a conclusion that the ocean is going to completely drown the planet in practically no time at all, and that it filled up from nothing just a few thousand years ago. Okay. Again, it's just a bogus argument. It just doesn't accept the fact that maybe things oscillate. And I'll trust the astronomers before I do Kent Hovind, that's for sure. Okay, there's 2 more, and I'm tired already. And I'm going to deal with these next 2 together, especially since they're more astronomy. Get to work, astronomers. You're too smart to waste your time with this stuff.
You look at the moon. The moon's going around the Earth, but the moon's getting further away from the Earth. Okay? Well, that means it used to be closer. If you bring the moon back in closer, you get higher tides. And at some point, you get too close and they snap together like 2 magnets, called the inverse square law. You can look at the stars in space, you can look at the living things on Earth, and look at the Earth itself. The Earth is spinning, but it slows down. I give about 30 different scientific indicators for a young Earth on my seminar part 1 on drdino.com.
All right, number 5 is the idea that the moon is receding. So it had to have been closer once upon a time. He doesn't deal with this quantitatively at all. You know, this would be my first thought. Let's find out the rate that it's receding. Let's see how far apart the moon and the Earth are, and we can do some estimates. Yeah, we could. It's kind of trivial math. And when I do that, what I discover is, okay, the moon is about 3.8 times 10 to the 10th centimeters away, and it's receding at the tiny rate of about 3.8 centimeters per year. Oh, that's easy to calculate. So we can estimate that the Earth and the Moon would have been coincident about 10 billion years ago. So again, this is a claim that emerged out of the Creation Research Institute about 1982 or thereabouts. It's been around for a while. And Kent just ripped it off. They can do that. Okay, so once again, Kent the parrot strikes. And you know, again, this is so basic and so trivial. You're writing a PhD thesis. You pull out some numbers from some source that you don't bother to reference, the least you can do is the simple arithmetic to see if your numbers add up, and he didn't. Okay, number 6. Number 6 is related. It's that the Earth's rotation is slowing. It is. It actually is slowing slowly, implying that it would have been spinning at a frantically impossible rate if it were very old. Can't possibly be that old, because go back far enough, it would just be, and you wouldn't be able to, everything would go flying off of it, right? Or it would never cool and condense. Yes, something like that. Again, not an astronomer. But once again, Kent doesn't even bother to do the math. The rate of the slowing of the Earth's rotation is about 0.005 seconds per year. Okay. And if you just use that number, now this is fudging because it's not linear, but if we actually took into account the fact that the rate is increasing over time, that it would be more in his favor, well, more against him. So we're actually giving him the benefit of the doubt by saying, okay, it's a constant 0.005 centimeters per year, seconds per year. If you use that number and extrapolate back to 4.6 billion years ago, the day would have been, I'll get ready for it, 14 hours long. Yeah, that's doable. Nothing impossible about that. So, yeah, more garbage. Good. And once again, Kent could have done this calculation, I think. He's smart enough to do division and multiplication, right? Maybe not. Okay, I just came up with a novel proof, however, that the Earth is very, very old. That is, if we extrapolate back from the rate at which Kent Hovind comes up with new creationist arguments between 1976 and 2021, which is 0, we are forced to conclude that the level of Hovind's ignorance has remained constant for 45 years. And if we extrapolate that back, we can therefore conclude that the age of the universe is infinite. Yeah, that works. Okay, well, I'm just slumming it again. This Kent Hovind is just such a waste of everything. Yeah, why do we keep going back to this? Because I'll tell you right now that what troubles me is if you look at the video, and yeah, I hate to do this, but I'll include a link to the video in the doodly-doo down below. You will discover that Kent Hovind has 189,000 subscribers. Makes me look like small potatoes, that's for sure. And you will see that in the day or two that this video has been out, how long has it been? Yeah, the whole one day that it's been out, it has acquired 3,100 views. That's more views than this video will get. So keep that in mind. And he's got 157 comments. Oh man, these comments too, they're just fawning over Kent Hovind. Love the style of content, short, simple, and straight to the point. I recommend doing this style of video often to keep the audience engaged. Oh man, but it's garbage. Great to hear some truths in a world of deceptions. Oh, bad news for you, Dean. Kent Hovind is deceiving you. And it goes on and on. The more science discovers, the easier Genesis reads. No, it doesn't. Oh, this is a great video, someone says. Okay. Yeah, and it goes on like this. Just comment after comment of people sucking up to Kent Hovind undeservedly. Oh, this makes too much sense. Oh, right. Oh, somebody argues with him. I think it was 7,000 years, not 6,000. Okay, that's the level of dissent we have in here. Yeah, anyway, sycophants everywhere. It's kind of a shame. But this is what we deal with, is that a guy like Kent Hovind can be this incredibly popular, get this many viewers, get this many BS comments praising inept stupidity, and we've got to find a way to fight this. I don't think my videos are the way, because I'm not going to catch up with him at all, but oh well. At least I got a few followers. Look here, I got some people on Patreon. Yeah, go to patreon.com/PZMyers and follow me. If I could get 189,000 subscribers on Patreon, that would be great. No, I don't expect that to happen, but yeah, it's the reality of this situation, is that we're a minority in a world full of Christian fools who actually think that Kent Hovind has something of value to say. He's just been saying the same garbage over and over and over and over again for almost 50 years now. And he keeps getting refuted and nobody cares. Oh, well. Okay, I'm going to let you go there, because I got to go over here in the corner and cry for a little bit. My usual response to watching creationist videos. And then a little later I'll get angry again. So don't worry about me. I'll bounce back. Okay, thanks for stopping by, and we'll see you all later. Next week, anything but Kent Hovind. Don't worry. No more Kent Hovind. I hope.